Better. Better, 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 better than the rest of me.
All right, and welcome to the first episode of Better Than the Rest of Me.
I hate live.
The podcast was an excellent intro song.
Yep.
Thank you, Jacob.
Oh, thank you, Kyle, for having me. I do appreciate it.
I love having you here. That is our first intro song, and we will discuss how we hope to get that to be the one and only time we have to use that intro song. But first,
It was more of a chant.
I liked it. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, there were no anti-Semitic remarks or
There's
anything,
that.
so there's that
No
to it.
homophobic moment. Or anything
Yeah,
like
it
that.
was. I was playing it pretty safe. I felt it was the
It was
best
very
way,
PG.
best way to go with that.
Which that's probably
The only time.
we're gonna ever be able to say something
Yeah.
was PG
Fuck.
on this podcast.
I mean,
there we go.
Yeah.
And we went ahead and popped it. But this is Better Than the Rest of Me, the podcast.
Yes.
And as I said, Jacob is the kind gentleman that blessed us with that intro song, and my name is Kyle, and we're the hosts. We are the ones that
The host with the most, babe.
that's there it is. Okay, I thought about the joke and then decided
I'm
not
the
to
host
make
with
that
the
one.
most.
Yeah, you're the
You're
host
not.
with the most.
It's okay though.
I'm just here. But this is a podcast about Destiny. If you couldn't guess,
The game that everyone loves to hate right now.
the game that
but I
it's
love.
very
I love for
popular.
some reason. I don't know.
I'm also a fan. It's very enjoyable. But this podcast primarily is going to focus on Destiny. I say primarily because we tend to rant, we tend to go chase rabbits. Chances are you're going to hear a lot more
Thanks,
30 to 45
Obama.
minutes than just Destiny.
Yeah.
But we're going to try very hard to stay on topic, sort of, and discuss that. Now that you know that I'm Kyle,
Oh, and I'm Jacob.
There it is.
Oh, okay. We got to work on that. The visual cues, the little wink and the tickle, and the little finger wave. I wasn't quite picking up on that yet.
we'll get there.
Okay.
First episode, chemistry will continue to brew.
Yeah.
But we actually met. Go ahead and get that little topic out of the way so we can discuss how we met. We met through a different video game, technically. Because you knew someone that I knew, but we hung out, technically.
So okay.
First time. Do you want to try
So
and
I
do it wrong?
fucked that person, who then fucked Kevin Bacon,
And then, yes.
who was in your WoW clan,
Exactly.
who then fucked you,
Exactly. Kevin Bacon.
and that's how we met.
Great at WoW and a gentle lover.
Very much so.
That was the best part.
Absolutely.
About knowing
Yeah,
Kevin
no,
Bacon.
we met, what is it, like 4 years now? Going on almost 4 years. It was like 2010.
4 years ago, playing WoW.
Playing WoW,
Clan.
that game, which,
I still love it.
it was great.
Maybe it's had its moment.
More garage, please. Please.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we met and hit it off. We dated briefly. Kyle was a little bit too insecure and a little bit too
I was
selfish.
gonna say I'm a selfish lover.
So,
It's a
but
problem.
it's okay. We managed to repair it, and we're still friends.
And here we are now,
Slightly.
hosting a podcast.
And here we are now getting sucked into yet another gaming endeavor
Exactly.
with Destiny. And what an endeavor it is.
Absolutely. And that's why I was finally able to trick or convince or beg a friend to host a podcast with me.
Friend,
A
that's
ex-lover is what we already established.
a gaming.
We're Xbox Live friends. I don't know,
Friendly
is that
thing.
about as official as it gets?
Yeah, no,
Or
that's fine.
nothing further than that? We know each other on Xbox.
That is where it stops
Exactly.
and starts.
But we're doing the podcast. A lot of people, and actually several of our friends, when I said, "Hey, I'm going to do a podcast," were like, "What? Who still listens to and/or records podcasts?" Well, I listen to them on a regular basis.
PBS listeners,
There we go.
NPR listeners,
Target audience. We're knocking those out of the park.
yeah, stay-at-home moms,
They're going to love talking and listening to a podcast about
hipsters,
Destiny. Yes, hipsters.
gaming hipsters,
Okay, that's getting closer to something that might appeal.
soccer lovers,
Okay, so now I feel like you're just naming
groups,
characteristics of random
groups of
people.
you,
Yeah, groups of me. These are just things I do.
parts of your heart.
Well, so we're going to do the podcast. We're going to do it. And the benefit of a podcast, let me go ahead and sell you on a podcast, because if you're listening to this, you obviously already know the benefits, but I'm going to sell you anyways. You can listen to it while you're at work, which is why I listen to them. When I don't have to think at work, which is 95% of the time, I can listen to a podcast. That's why we're doing this.
And you get paid for that?
And then I continue to get paid for that. Plus,
It's pretty sweet.
yeah, and Destiny is, I mean, it's fairly exciting. It's probably one of the biggest game titles.
It's a big deal, and as of right now, it's kind of the splitting hairs of the sort of game universes.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you like Destiny? Do you hate Destiny? Where do you think it's going with? So it is. It's a very polarizing game, and
Yes.
I mean, I think we both sit a little bit more on the Homer fence, but I'm willing to admit, some of the flaws, and we'll get into that in greater detail. But yeah, Destiny is definitely the game right now. Whether you love it or you hate it, it is the game to talk about. So here we are.
So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to have several of our Jackass friends be guest hosts.
Highly qualified,
Yeah.
might I add, to comment on anything outside of like sleep and masturbation techniques and efficient porn browsing.
Yes, but that's the thing. They're great at all of those things.
I have never been in more bewilderment than when I saw Austin have like 18 Xvideos browsers all going at once. It was insane. It was a sensory overload for me. I couldn't
feel
take
like
it.
There's no point at that. That's too many.
Well, we'll have to get into that
Yeah,
later whenever he's on. But
Yes, that will have to happen. But we're also going to just debate, if the game, as Jacob pointed out, is awesome or if it's terrible. That is the hot topic around it. But for those of us that do enjoy it, we're going to discuss the difference between the classes, maybe some tips. We've managed to do quite a bit in Destiny so far.
I've managed to do.
I say we, but yeah.
So,
Jacob-
so as we're recording this, Destiny's been out for a little over 3 weeks.
Mhm.
How much time do you have in game? Is it like almost 2 days, something like that, of actual in-game time? I mean,
I don't
got
think mine's that high.
yeah, you got a little bit. I'm almost at 6 days in game time. Like that's not like 6 days playing it. That's like
Yeah.
6 days and 3 weeks that I've lost to this game. So
And several of the people that we have on have a similar amount of time, I think. Maybe not quite as much. Maybe Jesse.
yeah, maybe
Jesse
We'll
and
have-
you might be at the
and
front of
we'll
that.
have Jesse on to talk
Yeah,
about
we'll have to Skype him in on one. But
the loot cave and
yeah.
the many lonely nights.
But so there's a lot to talk about. Let's do this though. Let's go ahead. Current opinion. We've already touched on how we like it. We're probably more on the Homer side. We enjoy it, but we know there are several downfalls. Jacob, what is your, if you had to just, I guess, state your case for Destiny? What is it that you think?
I mean, I'm unique in my opinion on gaming. See, one of the biggest complaints about Destiny up until this point is one of the things that I often find fascinating and even enjoy a little bit in games that is atypical, and that's the whole grindy element of it. A lot of people are complaining that one of the downfalls of Destiny is, and to some degree, when it comes to the single player, or well, not single player, but when it comes to the story mode or the campaign through through Destiny, it's a little bit lacking. It is. It's a little bit small on content.
It seems short.
It is. But I feel like that is more of an enabler to the actual game than it is the actual game. You have to have some sort of background. You have to have some sort of introductory mode into how the game is to be played. But once you're through all of that and you get to the level, you get to 20 and you start having to do strikes and start having to grind out crucibles and doing all these activities on the daily basis and bounties and such like that, the game can be kind of a grind. It really can. There is that element to it, very reminiscent of Diablo 3. And I, this game, the reception too at the onset of its release seems very reminiscent a lot to how Diablo 3 was received.
Yeah.
A lot of mixed reviews about it. A lot of people sort of on the fence about whether or not they would qualify it as a good game. I enjoy the grind of it, but I understand that it's not for everyone.
And the grind of it, I mean, it's a kind of grindy, but the grind, there's fun elements too that you're doing over and over again, but you're jumping around, shooting things, getting new weapons.
I mean,
trying new techniques.
the biggest pitfall that I would say isn't even the grindy aspect of it, because the grind can be fun if in the right context with the right people. The biggest downfall that I could see, or the biggest thing, and they've said they're going to start addressing it, but if I didn't have a group of people, a core group of people that were playing the game, the experience of the game would be 100% different.
Absolutely.
It isn't a game that is very well experienced by yourself, or very well experienced with strangers. It is a game that is experienced best with a group of people because, so much of the elements of what they're asking you to do in the game is centered around fire teams.
It's hard to do that kind of stuff on your own.
Right. And they do have a matchmaking system for some of the activities in the game, but really for the higher up ones, the harder ones that would actually require more than one person for most things, they don't have a matchmaking element in the game yet for that. So overall, again, the biggest point of contention seems to be primarily the story and how short and seemingly, displaced and disjointed it can be at times, and the grindy elements of it. But again, I feel like they're trying to incorporate, that kind of feeling from an MMO, although doing it slightly different, because they are sort of confined to a slightly different scale. I mean, at the heart of this game, it is a first-person shooter. Right. There's only so much that you can do interactively with the world besides shooting stuff.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, the basis of the game comes down to you shooting at things.
Right.
Whether or not those things necessarily have technical elements to it, and we can talk more about that when we talk about Vault, which I think was actually surprisingly good. I really enjoyed
it.
I enjoyed the raid, but up until that point, it can be a little frustrating that your primary interaction with everything is pretty much to shoot at it, kill it, get some loot,
and hide.
And shoot at more things.
And you're hiding. You're finding a spot where you can hit it, it can't hit you.
So, yeah, and it's one of those things that it is, again, just difficult to sort of reconcile an MMO game, an element where you typically have a larger array of control over what you can do with your environment, to a game that essentially boils down to shooting things with small subsets of abilities that can be used here and there.
And that's all primarily PvE that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, the great thing is it also has a huge, and I enjoy, despite the fact that I am terrible at the PvP side of Destiny. It's enjoyable. It's different because of the fact that you're jumping and you're jumping really far. There's, space magic in some cases. Where
jumping? That's what...
Well, it's different, though.
Man, the jumping.
It's the double jump. No, but there's a lot more. It's a different dimension to where things can come from.
To PvP. Yeah, I mean, it's in typical Bungie fashion. It's very reminiscent of Halo to some degree. The maps are very vertical, but yeah, I think the Crucible is actually, once you get past the story mode and you've sort of established yourself firmly in the role of, okay, I'm running strikes, I'm getting gear, I'm progressing my character in order to get in the raid. After that, there isn't a whole lot necessarily content-wise to do outside of the Crucible, but I thoroughly enjoy the Crucible. I think they really did a good job on map design. I think they really did a good job, with the game types. I mean, obviously, they're not reinventing the wheel here. We're seeing, free-for-all game types, team deathmatch, or as they call it, Clash. You're seeing domination-style game types. So, they're not doing anything here that we haven't already seen in a game before, but they do it well. They do it in typical Bungie fashion. The gunplay is very tight. The mechanics of the maps are good. The classes, albeit sometimes slightly skewed because some classes are, there's not an argument here. Hunters, by far, are a lot more useful in PvP situations than things like Defender Titans, although Defender Titans do have their moments. But, the problem is class balance, and it's difficult to do that to some degree. But the differences aren't so much that it makes it an unenjoyable experience because, again, at the end of the day, it's a first-person shooter at heart. So really a lot of it is all about the gunplay, which Bungie did awesome. The gunplay feels really great. The guns feel smooth, very responsive. It's all, the Crucible to me is a really good package. The only downside to it is I always think it's cheesy, the like one-shot kill type weapons in a PvP environment. Like, snipers I think are fine in the game. They don't really typically kill in one shot unless it's a headshot. However, a lot of the maps don't really offer too many great advantages for that, so you're a lot more close quartery, in which now, as I like to dub it, shotgun the game, featuring fusion rifles by Destiny. So that's the one drawback right now. But
I think that's something they'll balance. I think that they're going to pay attention to it. And
they've already
hopefully do something about it.
Yeah, there isn't the one downside is there isn't a whole lot of variety in terms of what you can bring to the Crucible. But they've said they're going to address that, and that's good. And hopefully, when they do, there will be a lot of fun to be had in the Crucible. The maps are good. There's, for the people that complain about the lack of variety in strikes, I think there's something like 10 or 12 different Crucible maps. There are quite a few, so the variety is there. The gameplay is good. The game modes offer, whatever you want to suit your needs. Whether you're a team deathmatch guy, I kind of like team deathmatch or the Clash. It's good. I'm more of a domination or control guy.
It's okay. I'm just so bad.
That's
Until
true.
I get a little bit better, I do not like them knowing exactly where I'm heading.
Yeah.
That's so the domination or the control does not work for me at the moment because they all know where I'm going.
Yeah, and
they outgun me.
yeah. Well, that's because you suck. But
That is exactly why.
if you're a
I wish
competent
I could
player,
argue.
if you're a competent player, you would find yourself enjoying your time spent in the Crucible. And for even those, just starting out who enjoy more of a PvP element, the Crucible is an entirely viable way to level up your character. I mean, if you don't want to touch the story, if you just want to go in there guns blazing and play PvP all day, go for it.
You can get gear.
It's great. And everything is normalized too for now. So I mean, all of the modes, once you're able to go in and you have, some degree of your class specialized into, I mean, you're perfectly capable of going in there and doing just fine in the Crucible.
Now, I will say, though, there is a huge benefit to having a gun, a specific gun, and then being able to upgrade it because it's normalized, but all of its perks.
The damage is normalized, but things like the impact on the weapons
Right.
and the different upgrades on the weapons, those are not. So those are all, I mean, those are the most important factor
and when
whenever
you
it
get to
comes.
20, really, it's all about kind of a min-max situation. Once you hit 20, you're picking gear that is going to be, it hits certain things. It hits certain points. It has certain perks or different, the impact and different things like that. So you're able to
Well,
actually
yeah, on the
really
guns.
tweak.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you're starting off, when you're first hit level 20, the most important aspect of your gearing choice is going to be light.
Right.
I mean, so up until that point, you're picking light over everything. But when you kind of have gotten into the mode where you're just about maxed out, or you're, not necessarily maxed out, but you're past 26, you're into like 27, 28, 29, when you're in those levels, then it starts to become, an experimental process about finding out what values are going to work for you. Whether you want to go, I want to go heavy int on this guy. I want to have my, special up all the times, or I really like this grenade and I want to max out the time. So yeah, there is something to be said about being able to sort of min-max the gear and the gunplay again, finding a PvP weapon, finding something that's going to help you excel in the Crucible. That's a fun aspect of it too. But you can't really go wrong with an auto rifle. Shingen E, I believe, is my favorite.
Is it?
Well, it's cheap. It fires quickly. It's got high stability. All those things, and a shotgun, and you can hop in there and get right along it on the action.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. And one other thing that we hadn't really talked about is, we've discussed getting gear, and you can always hope for the legendary Ingram to drop, and for that to be, decrypted into a nice legendary piece of gear. But a more reliable and really just the only real way to do it is to go ahead and work on a faction. Get your marks, purchase the gear from them.
Yeah.
That's a guaranteed way to get some gear.
Yeah, it is slower. And you'll see this in any type of multiplayer online game, that you'll have different factions that allow a player to, earn rep through activities that they'd already be doing.
We'll dive into more detail. I think we'll have a whole section or a segment on the different factions.
I mean, Future War Cult is by far the best. Like, obviously, like,
spoiler, Jacob has a favorite.
just, I mean, yeah, if you're going just by a lore standpoint, I mean, Future War Cult, come on, let's do this. Let's get there.
And at this point, we've talked about what we want to talk about for the first episode. The pilot, the teaser. Really, it's just the appetizer to the delicious meal. Stop looking at me like that, okay? I'm trying
That's it?
here. Yeah, no. Well, that's it for now. The reason that's it for now is because there's a lot that we want to talk about. But, I mean, we're at like 20 minutes
all right,
already.
Kyle. How do you feel the first episode went?
Honestly, I feel like it went really well. I really enjoyed it. Paul, or as he prefers to be called, PJ, did pop in halfway through to try to startle us.
In the studio. Who let him up into the studio?
I
I mean,
I'm going to have to talk to
we pay these
Jerry,
people.
our bouncer.
We pay these people to keep the riffraff out.
And
And
by studio, we definitely mean my guest bedroom.
studio.
The studio.
The studio.
We'll have to We'll have to post at some point pictures of the studio so people can see how legitimate this is.
Studio.
The studio. But no, it's gonna go well. I'm enjoying it. It's this is gonna be good. And you know, that's my opinion.
We'll see.
The real thing, though, we really want your opinion, sort of. We really
Kyle
want to say
does.
it's great. Yeah, I do, sort of, as long as it's positive. But there are a lot of different ways to get a hold of us, because one of the segments that we do want to have is we want to answer questions. That does require that we get said questions submitted to us,
And not just by dummy Twitter accounts that we set up.
right? Which that's not at all what we might do if we don't get one from a legitimate Twitter account.
Dan Smith writes, why are you guys so handsome and have such huge penises?
Well, Dan, or Mr. Smith, that is an excellent.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will have some real submissions. You can tweet us. We are at the Restiny, because better than the Restiny was too long. So the Restiny. You can also check out our website, which is www.betterthantheRestiny.com. I spent way too much time working on that, considering
I hadn't even looked at it yet.
considering the co-host.
I'll have to check it out after this.
It is glorious.
Yeah.
And then you can email us at betterthantheRestiny@gmail.com. We definitely want feedback. We want questions.
And hell, if you're, we are, unfortunately for our PlayStation listeners, we are Xbox. We're both Xbox only. But
Yep.
if you are a member of the Xbox community, you can also find us on there. My Xbox gamer tag is Your Pal Rabbit, all one word. Hit me up.
And I'm Tazlantic. If you want to party with someone who's, what did we say already, terrible at PvE and PvP,
Pretty much.
Why am I doing this?
if you want an albatross to,
just someone to.
if you
want to
feel, if you want to experience what it's like to be me for a day, then you can invite Kyle to your fire team and wipe for
I make
hours on it.
quite the backpack. Jacob carries me on his back regularly. But now, so submit that, as well as if you listen to this through iTunes, like, rate, review. All of that's very important and very helpful.
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, yeah. We really have to nail down exactly how we're going to host this. We'll see.
We'll figure it out.
But until then, you know, we've got plenty to talk about as of now. And I will say that Destiny has done a really good job, in my opinion, of providing new information, or not new information, new in-game activities fairly regularly. Even if it's just a PvP weekend, they've done a decent job of introducing stuff. So hopefully we will continue to have things to talk about in this podcast. But for now,
Yep.
we're going to... For now, that's it. Tune in next week. Same time, same place. Again, my name was Kyle.
Oh, and I'm Jacob.
There we go. We're getting better. And this is Better Than the Restiny.
Peace. Better than the rest of me.